Hi, and welcome to A Sense of Wellness podcast, inspiring and empowering a healthier you. I'm your host, Susan Greeley, and I'll be diving deeper into the 4 pillars of wellness: sleep, exercise, nutrition, and stress management. Today, I'm extremely excited to talk about fitness, exercise, and sports from the perspective of a truly legendary elite endurance athlete who is now a coach and motivational speaker. Yet, I know we can't have this discussion today without tying in all pillars of wellness and talking about what it means to live a truly healthy life and stay vital as we age. So my guest today is simply an awe-inspiring human. I'm honored to have him join me in hopes of inspiring and empowering our listeners to achieve greater well-being, and that's truly my goal. So now, the mystery aside, I'm joined today by a man called The Grip. His real name is Mark Allen. Mark is a 6-time Hawaii Ironman Triathlon champ. He was named Triathlete of the Year 6 times by Triathlete magazine. And in 1997, Outside magazine tabbed him the world's fittest man. In 2012, he was voted the greatest endurance athlete of all time in a worldwide poll conducted by ESPN. So he has since retired from competition, and Mark has become a much sought-after motivational speaker. He's an internationally acclaimed triathlon coach, and he's an award-winning author. Along with Brant Secunda, he has published a groundbreaking book called Fit Soul, Fit Body: 9 Keys to a Healthier, Happier You. Mark's most recent book is called The Art of Competition, and it was released in August of 2014 as a one-of-a-kind book of quotes and thoughts on competition that was born out of the heat of the Ironman racing. So Mark's racing career stands as one of the greatest in all of sports. So with all that said, Mark, I am so happy to be talking with you today, and thank you for being with me.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Susan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you are definitely a true inspiration, not only to me, but to millions of people out there. So my first question, back to your nickname. We're going to start on a light note. I have no idea. How did you get the nickname The Grip?
In the early years of my career, there was one year in particular where I made a big jump in my cycling fitness. And I used to do a lot of group rides with, a whole bunch of people. And the rhythm was usually that we would sort of ride easy for quite a while, and then finally somebody would get motivated and the pace would pick up, and then it would turn into the real workout. Well, this particular year, I was not in the mood to talk a whole lot. I was in the mood to work a lot. And so literally right away, like a few minutes into the ride, I'd get down in the drops in the handlebars and start to take off. And this one ride, this guy goes, "Uh-oh, he's got the grip. Hold on," and he just kept calling me The Grip after that. And after a while, that's what everybody was calling me for years. They go, "Hey, Grip, how's it going?" And so kind of a light story, actually, nothing big, and eventually then it sort of became like in races, "Oh, he's got you in his grip," like he's going to win because he's got this amazing concentration and this incredible fitness. And, if he's anywhere close to you, he's going to run you down, that kind of a thing. And, it's funny that I'm excelled at competition, because ultimately I'm really not competitive oriented. Like, I really enjoy the experience of exercise, the experience of just making myself a little bit faster through the training that I did when I was racing. And now I enjoy that experience of exercising to maintain health and vitality and flexibility and reducing stress. And just, I'm 63 now. Don't tell anybody.
I won't.
I know that I don't look a day over 80, but I'm 63. And so my sort of quest in life, in terms of especially the pillars that you spoke about, is to use those to really kind of maybe reset what is possible in terms of really good health. And I'm not talking about being a competitive, not the competitive end of health and fitness and all that. I did that for 15 years. Now at 63, it's a different journey. I think that's more the journey that a lot of people are on, is how do I stay healthy? How do I stay fit? How do I stay vibrant? How do I keep my mind ticking along and humming along and staying clear? And, how do I reduce my stress so that, I can manage things? Because clearly we're all going to come across things in life that are challenging. I mean, look at COVID. There's not one person that didn't experience an unusual level of unexpected challenge. And so, like, how do we deal with that? How do we manage it? What can we do in the face of things that get taken away from us? And so, kind of threw a lot of things out there, but
That's okay. I'm looking at all of these questions I prepared for you because they are plentiful and you just touched on so many different directions that I want to go. We can start there if you want to talk about stress management, or should we go and start at kind of the roots of your endurance athletic career? So we're either going to go back or start in the present day.
well, I should give people a little background. You
Yeah.
know, when I was 10 years old, I saw the Mexico City Olympics on television, and it was the
Ah.
first big sort of sporting event that I'd ever seen on TV that was different than baseball or basketball or football. And I was just mesmerized by all these different sports and all these different athletes from around the world coming together to celebrate competition. And the thing that really just stood out for me were the distance swimmers, because at that point in my life as a 10-year-old, if I swam one lap across the pool, I had to hang on the wall or get out and rest because I was exhausted. And so I just couldn't believe that they were going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And shortly after that, there was an advertisement in the local paper in Palo Alto, California, where I was growing up. The local swim team was having tryouts. My mom goes, "Why don't you go? You really love those swimmers." I'm like, "Mom, I can't even swim a lap, you know?" And she goes, "Come on, we'll just go." And so I went, and I actually, they said, "Hop in and swim with the other kids." And I swam 4 laps without stopping. I'm like, geez. Anyway, fast forward, I swam competitively for 12 years, all the way through university, from the time I was 10 through university. But I was very mediocre in the sense that, I improved from where I started, but I never reached the world-class level. I never went to Olympic trials, certainly didn't go to the Olympics, was not even anywhere close. So, I don't feel like I necessarily have this gigantic genetic toolbox that just makes it so easy for me to excel at sports. And
Michael Phelps, right? Who does?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the he's built to be fast. He's got giant arms, he's got super flexibility in his shoulders. His knees bend backwards. His feet are like paddles. They're so gigantic. He's made to swim. And so 2 years after I quit competing in swimming, I saw the Ironman Triathlon on television. This was in 1982, and I was 24 years old. And I was just mesmerized once again, because it seemed completely impossible. For those who don't know, the Ironman is a triathlon. It starts with a 2.4-mile swim, and that's followed by 112 miles of cycling. And then, since you're so warmed up, you get to do a marathon, 26.2 miles. And I just thought, how many days is it going to take them to finish that crazy thing? And Jim McKay, the announcer on Wide World of Sports at the time, he said they start at 7 a.m. and they have to finish by midnight, 17 hours later. And I thought, there's no way a human body can do that. But clearly, as I watched these seemingly ordinary people cross that extraordinary finish line, I was like, oh my God, this really is possible. And 2 weeks after that, I thought, I have to go there and see if I can do this event, do this race, and just see if I can finish.
Wow.
So I started training in February. The race that year was in October.
Mhm.
And of course, having no cycling and running experience, that was kind of a crazy buildup, right? I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
Kind of.
Take your time. Don't take 8 months and get ready for an Ironman. And so anyway, I did a short race in June that summer to just start to get some race experience at triathlon. And I came off the bike in 4th place. And when I was a swimmer, if somebody even got a half a stroke on me, this little tape would go off going, oh, they're going to win. I'm going to lose. There's no way I can make up the distance. And so within a mile, this guy started to pass me, and I went from 4th to 5th place. And so the swimmer tape went off, and it's like, oh, he passed me and he's going to pull away and I'm going to end up in 5th, and maybe more people are going to come by me. And then something just clicked. My mind went quiet for a second. And I go, maybe it doesn't have to be like that. You know how it is? We sort of pre-script how something's going to turn out before it even turns out.
Oh, absolutely.
So my mind just kind of went quiet, and I thought, maybe I can catch back up. And I could feel my whole body relax. And he stopped putting time on me. And the next thing I knew, I was pulling back the gap that he had put on me. And the next thing I know, I pass him and end up back in 4th place. And I finished in 4th place. And it was such an example for me of that mind-body connection,
Mm-hmm.
of how our thoughts can affect not only athletic performance, but our health and our body image and just everything, And so to me, that's such an important piece. And it kind of relates to the stress element that you were talking about. Everybody has to deal with stress. 20, 30 years ago, you'd say, how many of you have to deal with stress? And some people would raise their hand. Now it's like, if you ask that silly question, everybody's going to raise their hand. So it's more like, how much stress do you have to manage? Is it all day long? Is it just certain
Sure.
periods, whatever? And obviously, a lot of times when we're under stress, we can go to that negative conversation in our head, which doesn't help us to be clear, doesn't help us manage the experience, and it affects our body. It shuts down your immune system. It makes it hard to digest food. It turns off your athletic exercise capabilities. You can end up getting injured. You don't sleep as well. I mean, it's all these
That's right.
negative things, right? And the gentleman that I wrote the book Fit Soul, Fit Body with, his name is Brant Secunda, and he teaches a tradition that comes from the Huichol people in central Mexico. It's a shamanic tradition. And so much of what the Huichol people value is, and what they work on is quieting their mind. And that's one of the keys in our book. And, he said, when your mind is quiet, then you're not affected as negatively by the challenging things. And it's like you almost don't even need to have a positive thought to really be effective in life, because when you're quiet, you can just engage in whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's a project at work or a workout or a race or coming up with a solution to something that you need an answer to. In one breath, there it goes. You can find that quiet space. And he said, you can do it with your breath. You can do it by going out and being in nature. Human beings are hardwired to feel good when we are in nature. There was a study done a number of years ago with college students, and it was to quantify the positive impact of exercising on reducing stress levels. And so they had one group exercise for 30 minutes on a stationary bike in a lab, and then they had the other group do 30 minutes outside in nature. And both groups had a reduction in their stress levels. However, the group that exercised outside, their stress reduction, stress levels, hormones, all that stayed low for 12 hours. The group who exercised inside, it stayed low for like an hour or two. So there's a huge benefit, if you can, to just getting outside, even if it's just to sit on a park bench and go and daydream.
Right.
That is such a potent tool and so simple and such an easy way to reduce stress. Go outside, open the door, walk outside in the day, in the night. It will reduce your stress.
I just took a deep breath. Did you hear that? And it's so true, though. Simple tools like that, nature is so powerful. Last night, I'll give a personal story. I had a very stressful evening. For the listeners who don't know, I have 4 boys. So I was outside about 9 o'clock last night, just looking at the stars. And what do you know? I felt better taking those deep breaths. And I can't stress that enough. That was a intended pun, by the way, with the stressing it enough. I love talking about these things. It's very unexpected, I think, for people when, hear of you, this unbelievable, truly legendary endurance athlete. And yet we're talking about taking long, deep breaths and enjoying nature day in and day out for living longer and living healthier and better, honestly. So we'll go down that path a little bit more. And then I am going to jump back to your past and how you got over some of the hurdles of maybe that negative self-talk, in the sense of also helping people now. I work with so many clients who really can't get out of their rut. So I want to talk about motivation and resilience and more of the stress management. So how do you muster up the motivation to keep going when you're in a bad place mentally, to either pick yourself back up and keep going, or even to get moving in the first place? I hear that a lot right now. People are stressed out, a lot of anxiety, call it even depression. How do you get yourself moving?
One thing is, and this is one of the keys in our book, it's called know and set your quest. It's not like putting down a business plan. It's more like stopping for a moment and reflecting and asking yourself, why does this journey that I am going to embark on have meaning to me? Why is it important for me to put in steady, consistent work over a long period of time for whatever it is, whether it's losing weight, being healthier, producing something at work, winning a race? It's all the same. It's like, why does this have deep meaning to me. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated. You know, like when I ask myself, why do I want to go to the Ironman? That looks like the most nutty, crazy, ridiculous, stupid human thing that anybody could come up with to do. But I just felt like I just want to go and see if I can cross that finish line. And that had a lot of meaning to me. You know,
Your curiosity alone, right?
yeah, and it doesn't have to have meaning to anybody else except for you. You know, so like when you have those moments of reflection, try as best as you can to not think how your husband, your wife, your partner, your kids, your boss are going to respond if you tell them, hey, I'm doing this because they might look at you like, because you're nuts. No, as long as it has meaning to you, that's a good start. And then the hand in the glove aspect of two keys in that book. One is know and set your quest, and the other is to live what you ask for. So that's actually probably the harder part. You know, there in the sport of triathlon, there were a lot of people that wanted to win the Ironman World Championship in Hawaii. It's an amazing race, an amazing experience. It's the world championship of our sport. It's the Wimbledon, the Olympics, the Super Bowl of triathlon. Living what you ask for means that there are going to be many, many days where you're going to have to go out and consistently train, and you won't be seeing any results. You won't be getting faster. You won't feel like you're getting stronger. You won't feel like you're getting any closer to being in the type of shape you need to be in to actually become a world champion. However, if you just blow it off, that's definitely not going to get you what you asked for, you know? And so to just realize that a lot of times that journey we are on doesn't progress at the same timeline that we think it should, you know? So for example, I want to lose 30 pounds. And I saw on TV that somebody lost 30 pounds in a month on the such and such a diet, right? Maybe it's going to take 2 years, but that's okay. That really is okay, you know? And so to sort of tap into the timeline of life as opposed to tapping into the timeline of our own expectations, that can help also. And then to realize that there's going to be days where it just is important to not do that thing that we feel we have to obsessively do. You know, like if you're a runner and you're on this running streak where you've run, 45 days straight and you want to run 60 days straight. Well, on day 46, your body might just be saying, you know what, I need a break today. And if you don't honor that, you can get sick, you can get injured, you can just be completely burned out. And so we have to honor our internal sort of batteries that sometimes need to back away from being motivated. Nobody is motivated 100% of the time. If
Right.
you don't sort of, think of yourself like bamboo where you sway in the wind, but you don't break, if you don't give yourself that resiliency, that leniency to kind of ebb and flow with your motivation levels, it can be very hard, and to understand that that is completely natural and normal. And then ultimately, and this is something that really came out of COVID for me and for the athletes that I coach, is to ask yourself, what is just that one simple inherent thing that I gain each and every day by doing this particular habit that I am engaged in? If it's exercise, maybe I want to lose weight or get faster, whatever it is, but that's down the road. What is it about doing this thing today that is giving me satisfaction, fulfillment, a sense of being one with my commitment to myself and my health and my happiness? And so, athletes last year, nobody had races to go to. And a lot of them were ready to just throw in the towel and not train. And I go, wait a minute, a race is great. You go for a time, you go for a place, you try to improve your PR, whatever it is, but you're not going to have races. But when you go out and you exercise, what does that do for you? You did that bike ride today. You felt better when you did it, when you came home, right? Yeah, I did. Your stress levels went down, didn't they? Yes, they did. When you were out there, you could disengage your brain from having to feel like you have to solve the world's problems. You were just riding, or you were just running or hiking or walking. And so if there's something in your journey that feels like it's going to take motivation, one of the things to try to figure out is, when I put one of those little pebbles in place on this journey that I'm on, and it progresses me an inch forward, how does that one thing make me feel? That one simple thing that made me feel a little bit better, a little more committed to myself by doing it.
And focus on that positive feeling.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Like I ask people, Brant and I teach workshops called Fit Soul Fit Body. And a lot of times I'll ask, how many of you have gone for a walk in your life? And of course, everybody raises their hand, and I go, did you feel better after you came back from the walk than when you started? Everybody says yes. But a lot of times it's hard to get out the door. You're like, oh, I can't do it. It's cold. It's hot. I'm tired. Blah, blah, blah. Even going out for 5 minutes, you'll feel better. And it's something positive you did for yourself.
Right. I have to say, I do preach that with many, many clients. They don't always believe me. They don't. And so I work hard to get them out the door, and they don't naturally gravitate towards exercise. There are plenty of people who simply don't, yet they know that it's good for them. So how do you get beyond when somebody really has convinced themselves they don't feel better, they can't do it physically, whatever, they're heavy, they're trying to lose weight, but they know that quest is, I really rationally, consciously want to lower my blood sugar. I want to lose weight. I want to not take diabetes medication, something like that. But there's like this internal conflict all the time. I deal with this with people all the time. So back to finding that motivation or even fun in it. How do you help people find the fun and the joy in physical activity if that's not their natural state?
Well, one thing I really try to emphasize is that ultimately everybody is an athlete.
Oh,
Every single person on this planet
human
is an
beings.
athlete.
I love that, Mark. I didn't ever think of that before.
Human beings are meant
We're
to
meant to
move.
move,
We
Jinx.
are hardwired to feel better when we move. The only reason in ancient times when people didn't move much was when the source of food was very sparse. And so your energy levels dropped, your mood kind of went a little depressed, because if there's no food, you don't want to be wandering around all over the place expending energy. You want to conserve it. Mm-hmm. And so, fast forward to modern times, a lot of folks don't move. And so your ancient genetics, which are trying to help you survive, think that, oh, the reason you're not moving is there's no food. And so I'm going to make your mood a little bit suppressed, and I'm going to lower your energy levels so you're not going to feel like moving. So how do you counter that? How do you get out of that rut? Because it's just as much a pattern as somebody who has that pattern or habit of exercising every day. And so one thing is that I have found people gravitate toward is having some form of accountability, whether it's you're meeting a friend for a walk, or you're checking in with your personal trainer or your coach, or maybe you even have just your own kind of logbook somewhere where you're just logging your activity. And so it's a reality check, like, oh, I haven't done a thing for 4 days now. I thought it was only 2. You know what I mean? And then the second thing is to maybe, if it's about exercise, you haven't found the exercise that you gravitate toward. Maybe you think, oh, I've got to run, but maybe you're not meant to run. Maybe swimming is something that you would absolutely love if you tried it. Or maybe it's doing, online core work. There's so many things online that help lead you through workouts. So you can do them in your home, where if you're self-conscious, nobody's going to see you. It's not like you got to go to a gym and you feel out of place. I should tell you this. When I was 34, I had won the Ironman 3 times already. And I had seen that at the end of that third year of winning, I won 89, 90, 91. And in 1992, I saw that I didn't have quite the same strength that I'd had in the earlier years of my career. And so I thought, I have to go do strength work. But I didn't know what to do. But anyway, there was this Gold's Gym at 2 blocks from my house, and so it was like, panic attack. I put on my gym stuff and I walked down there and I opened the door and I look at these guys in there, and they're hulks. They're like all huge, and they're throwing these huge plates of weight around, and they're grunting and sweating. And I looked at them and I looked at my skinny endurance body, and I go, I can't do it. And I closed the door and I went back out. So here I am, Mark Allen, 3-time Ironman world champion, intimidated to go in the gym because of this whole scene, right? So, as far as that accountability piece, I said, I have to do this. And I didn't really know what to do anyway if I'd gone in there. I knew what a curl was and a bench press, but that was it. And so I was actually connected with a woman who was like an encyclopedia of strength training. And she just led me through my entire season. I met her for every one of my strength workouts twice a week. And so I had my accountability. I was going to meet Diane Bukta on Tuesdays and Thursdays for my strength work. And it was going to be 45 minutes to an hour each time. Mm-hmm. And it was the most amazing transformation. I could feel my body just soaking up this work. And even today, that's one of the core things that I think is so important for people to do, is some form of resistance training so that your muscles do stay strong. You don't lose that lean muscle mass that can happen as you age, even if you're running, cycling, and swimming all around the planet. So important to do. And it's really fun once you kind of feel like, okay, now I know what I'm doing. It's sort of like that thing of, as an adult, you don't want to feel like you're a kid learning how to do something in life again for the first time. But
Yeah.
if you can just get into that mindset, like, okay, I don't know a thing about this, and who cares? And just learn it and start to gain proficiency. And then after a little while, you're like, I got this now, And so
Yeah.
now it's fun for me.
Yeah, I love that. I can't even tell you, I'm sure, how relieved or happy listeners are to hear that Mark Allen was actually had an anxiety attack opening the door to the gym. I think that is hilarious. But it's not. I get the same thing. And thank you for saying that. I think that that's extremely helpful to everyone out there who's listening. And as we all age, it's just a given part of life. And I was thinking about this. So it's one of my questions for you. It's like, how did your body take all of that? And how did you, we know the marathoners are so lean and thin, but as we age, like you're more prone to injury. So how have you yourself, have you changed now? I'm assuming you still exercise. And what do you do to prevent long-term damage and injury? And really back to honoring your body. Give us a little more insight into how it's changed over time for you. And maybe you do more resistance training now. That's something that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. Cardio, in other words, like.
Yeah, no, everybody knows cardio. And I like using resistance training because it's strength training almost sounds like you've got to be this Hulk to do it. But resistance training, something that you can do with stretch cords, with bands, with your own body weight. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to go into a very complicated gym with all this huge equipment that even if you look at it and the equipment even is intimidating because like, how do I use that thing? But anyway, that's actually a great question. Like, how do you modify what you do over time to honor yourself? And that's also another one of the keys in our book. It's honoring yourself. How do you honor yourself with the exercise you do? Because your body does change as you age. When men, their testosterone levels drop. Women, they go through menopause. There's these changes that take place in our bodies. And that's why we have age groups and races, right? Yeah, a 60-year-old man or woman doesn't have the same body as somebody who's 25. And so one thing I did started actually way back when I was competing. My main overarching goal in my 15-year career was to exit the sport uninjured, healthy, and not burned out. Because I had seen so many athletes hit their peak and then think they can keep going for another couple of years, and they do okay, but they're not as good as they used to be. And then they get frustrated, and then they push too hard, and then something in their body breaks down, and then they can't even do what they love at any level. And it's like, I want to leave on the top of the game. And fortunately I did. I wasn't burned out. I wasn't injured. Everything works as it did years ago, but I've dialed back the level of exercise that I do. I've dialed back the intensity that I do. There's nothing that I do now that I would consider super intense, and definitely nothing that's long. My longest workout now might be an hour spinning on my bike, or if I go for a run, it's 30 minutes. It's not, one thing that I've incorporated that I never did when I was younger is I walk a lot. It's like focused walking, but walking is such a good exercise for a human being. I can't overemphasize that. It gives you time to dial into your body. It gives you time to daydream. It gives you time to, again, be out in nature. If you're on trails, if you're walking with somebody, you're going to have some of the best conversations you've ever had, while you're walking. But as you age, I think, a couple keys. One, it's good to do a number of different kinds of exercise, because let's say you're a strict runner and that's your sport. You run all the time. Well, everybody's body has a little imbalance, left to right. And so for years, maybe you're fine, you don't get injured. But as you get older, you start to kind of like dig a rut on one side or the other. And the next thing you know, you get injured. However, if you mix up that running with some cycling and some swimming and some aerobics and some walking and skiing or whatever it is, you're always giving your body a different stimulation. And so you don't ever dig that rut so deep that you get injured. And I have found that to be absolutely critical. strength training again. And then one thing that is one of your pillars is you got to get sleep. You have to get good sleep.
It's so true. I also focus on this a lot in all of my coaching and with clients, just how I call it a superpower. I talk about it so frequently, and I'm going to interject this, and I didn't mean to interrupt. I just got so excited. I did my first sprint triathlon, just a sprint, 3 months, I believe, after giving birth. People are like, you're
Mm.
insane. My baby slept. And I say, there's no way I could have done that unless he slept. And even now, if I know me personally, I just don't function well if I haven't slept well. So I wanted to ask you, through those years and even now, how did you prioritize sleep?
Sleep was one of my secrets, and I tell people
Right?
the reason that I was able to recover as quickly as I did from my training day to day and then from the races throughout the year was because I slept really well. Normally I got at least 10 hours in the night, and a lot of days I would take a nap. I was professional,
Wow.
so I wasn't having to fit the training in to a job and everything else. But, I think the takeaway is
Your
I was
body
very,
needed it.
yeah, I was very consistent with the sleep, and I stayed tuned into it. And it's funny because my mom, she's 84 now, and she exercises every day. But, she does a little something, but she said she has a hard time with sleeping. And fortunately, so far, I'm still doing pretty good with the sleep. I'm like a hibernating bear at night. So
Yeah, that's excellent.
it's so important. That's when your body repairs, it replenishes. You recharge those batteries, those internal batteries, like that deep energy reserve. And so, people ask me, well, I got all this stuff on my mind, and how do I go to bed and my mind just spinning around. And Brant gave me a real good tip years ago. He said, before you get in bed or just before you go to sleep, think about the things that are your processing things, and then let them go, so that when you go to sleep, then you can have beautiful dreams and you can sleep really deeply, and you're not trying to solve your problems in the middle of the night. Think about it at the end of your day, and then let it go, and then you're free to have this deep sleep. And then part of that sleep, of course, relates to having a good diet, so that your body is producing all of the hormones you need to put yourself to sleep and wake yourself up and to
Right.
be strong and to repair and all of that. It's all related. And I knew that when I was racing, and I certainly see that now more than ever as a 63-year-old who's trying to just see what's possible as a 63-year-old. And I should emphasize, when I turned 50, I woke up and it was like the first birthday where I went, oh, geez, I'm probably halfway through this journey at best, probably more than halfway. So how do I want to,
Spend the next half.
yeah, how do I want to script this next half? What's it going to take to stay healthy and vibrant and vital and strong and flexible and all that kind of stuff? And it's taken me years, but now I feel like I finally hit on that. And at some point right around that time, you start getting all of these notifications from AARP, right? I looked at some of the stuff that they sent out, their promotional materials, and I was looking at going, these people look really old, and like all they want to do is go on a cruise ship and sit around. I'm like, when you're approaching that 50, a lot of people are still trying to figure out how to stay 25 or 30 or 35, right? And then the signal I was getting from AARP is that now that I'm 50, I'm all of a sudden geriatric. And it's like, wait a minute, there's a whole span of time there between being young and then all of a sudden you're geriatric. So anyway, everything that I am trying to do is to not necessarily to make 60 the new 40, but to make 60 the new 60, to,
Oh, I love that. Because I do say this to people. I actually just said it probably yesterday to somebody that 60 is the new 40. I'll reframe that as well. I'll rephrase that. We're saying the same thing, but really not being afraid of that number, right?
Mhm.
And having a completely different mindset about it and quote unquote aging. I think it's time to talk about this because this is what I see in my daily work. It's really how we take care of ourselves. We determine so much of how we age and how we live, and it does start in our minds, and that is translated into every aspect of our physical well-being.
Absolutely. It's like aging gracefully as opposed to getting old.
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of people, by the time they hit 40, they're getting old. But aging gracefully is feeling this grace and ease and sense of empowerment actually as you get older, like feeling empowered because, okay, I'm not going and doing an Ironman, but I feel empowered because I went out and I surfed this morning. And yesterday I
How cool
did
is
my
that?
walk and I did my strength workout. And the day before, and it goes back. Aging gracefully, being healthy at any age isn't about anything you do on one particular day. It's what you do every single day. It's the sum total of each year and the years leading up to that. And if you have been in a space where the habits haven't been adding to your health, it's never too late to take
Turn
that
it
by the
around.
reins and turn it
Mm-hmm.
around and turn it
Mm-hmm.
into something super positive. Again, it's like if we can just dial back that type AAA expectations of getting everything all at once and just go to the small, simple steps, the small, simple successes each and every day. What did I do today that was a success? And
Mm-hmm.
what thought did I give myself that fed my soul? What connection with life did I do today that made me feel alive and like, yeah, this is a good thing. I got my challenges, I got all the stuff, but I saw that bird that I never saw before, and I went outside
Yeah.
and I felt that sun, and I did go for a 10-minute walk. I didn't have time for 20, but I did 10. Just what are those small daily successes and things that we can do? And same thing with your diet. When you eat a meal and it's a healthy meal, you feel good about yourself, and the food nourishes you and your body feels better. And when your body feels better, then you want to take care of it more. And as you take care of it more, it's able to manage stress more. And then you sleep better. And all of these things they're all wrapped together. There's no disconnect. And it all just starts with simply taking one small step.
That's exactly why I can't separate out one of the pillars of wellness of the, sleep, exercise, nutrition, and stress. You really can't talk about one without including all the others and small baby steps. It's why I love lifestyle change and doing what I do and you do, because people see it and feel it for themselves. Once they make these small doable changes on a daily basis and do it consistently, and starting small really is that key to that, then it is a self-perpetuating cycle. And I think that that's the most empowering thing for people. And that's why I do what I do. And we're talking like this because it is empowering when somebody who historically thought, just self-fulfilling prophecy or whatever it is, or labeled themselves, I'm overweight, I'm always lethargic, I'm sedentary, I'm X, Y, and Z, and I have all these chronic diseases, right? Today, you can decide to start to turn that around by simply picking one aspect of your daily habits. And I'm with you, Mark. If you just start to go for a walk, you're not doing that now, where you notice the birds, you notice the flowers blooming here on the East Coast. It's absolutely beautiful springtime wise. Those really matter. And I stress that more than anything, that small changes do make a big difference. So thank you for saying all of that and tying it all together. It really is why we're here, and empowering people, inspiring them to make changes. And kind of back to that whole like turning 50 and thinking, I want to comment on that for a second. Not to give away my age, however, let's just say at that birthday, 50 meaning, I really had this whole thought that I've got another half a century. And I think people didn't used to think that. I don't think my parents thought that way, sadly, that by age 40, let alone 50, they were over the hill.
Yeah.
And life was going downhill from there. Whereas I think the opposite. And that's what I work with people to also, not that they have to see things the way I see, but it is a mindset that there's just so much life changes and it's different. You don't have the 25-year-old body, and nor should you, right? It doesn't mean it's not great and healthy and that you can achieve or do things physically. You're just doing different things. It's all exciting, if you ask me. And the world is changing in that sense. Our view of that AARP, that number is just mind boggling to me. I think for women, maybe for men less so, for women going from I had a child in my 40s, and next thing I know, I'm getting AARP magazines. And there is a huge disconnect, right? Like,
Yeah.
wait, I have to stay healthy to get my kids well out of college. So, yeah, I know it's just fascinating.
One of the things you said, people can think about it, it's that personal empowerment. When I was a swimmer, like I said, I was very outstandingly mediocre. I never won big events. I never did anything that ended up in newspapers as newsworthy. And so all of the gratification and fulfillment was just my own personal standard. If I could go a tenth of a second faster on my 100 back, then I was over the moon excited,
Yeah.
and when I was excited, my swim partners were also excited, my teammates, like, all right, you set a PR, and it's like, we need to all be cheerleaders for everybody,
Yes.
and to not only honor where people are at with their health, their fitness, their exercise, their diet, their sleep patterns, their ability or inability to manage stress, but to be our own cheerleaders, and to acknowledge, like I said, those simple one stone that you put in place today that is something positive that you did for yourself, because that's your scale. I'm never going to be Michael Phelps. He's never going to be Mark Allen.
Mark,
But,
right.
we're all ourselves. And so that is so empowering when you just go, you know what? I did that thing that I know was really good for me today. I did that exercise. I ate that diet, that meal that was really good. I got the sleep that I did. I turned off the alarm. I took the day off because I was tired, and, or whatever it is. That's personal empowerment, and that will carry us day after day after day after day.
Sure will. That said, I'm very curious if you have a morning routine yourself. And I say morning routine because I think that starting the day with some sort of healthy routine is really key to, it sets the tone for the day. So do you have one?
I do have kind of a morning routine. Yeah. I rarely wake up to an alarm because I work out of my house. My coaching, Mark Allen coaching, is all online. I go to sporting events, triathlons and other things. But when I'm home, I just sleep till my body says, okay, time to get up. Get up. I usually, I'll have my cup of coffee, and then I will almost always go do some form of exercise before I actually have breakfast. So, here in Santa Cruz, I live 2 blocks from one of the main surf breaks, and I've surfed for years. And so I'll go and I'll paddle out and surf for, an hour, nothing super long. And it's great because I'm in nature. It's my stress relief. I'm out there moving my body. It's cardio. It's my yoga because I'm moving in every direction. It's balance, which is something very important as we age, to work our balance. Mm-hmm. And, it's time with my community too, all the folks that I see in the water that I've known for years. And then I come back, and then I have my breakfast, and then I dig into all of the work that I have. And so that's kind of my rhythm. And I love that piece of kind of getting up. The very first thing that I do are a couple spiritual exercises to connect with life that Brant has taught me since I've been studying with him for 30 years now. That's the first thing, that little spiritual connection to life, honoring life, feeling gratitude that you're awake. If prayer is your thing, give a prayer. If you meditate for a little bit. If you have some form of other spiritual exercise you do that first thing so it sets the tone for your day. And then
a gratitude journal. That's what I read.
Yeah. Something. And then I have my coffee, I go do my exercise, I come back, have breakfast, and then the day's on. And again, still, even though I'm not competing, a lot of days I will take that little 20-minute nap in the afternoon. And it's
okay.
It's like a total brain recharge. I just feel like, I'm ready for the second half now too.
Isn't it? So I'm the queen of power naps.
Awesome.
And I swear by them. 20 minutes, even 15 to 20 minutes does me a world of good. Mm-hmm. That's such a beautiful morning routine, though. Thank you for sharing that. I do similar things myself. And if I don't, it just is the day, it's a wild card, right?
Yeah.
So do you have any fun sporting facts or Ironman facts or trivia you can tell listeners?
Ironman's one of those things where, and I saw this on a t-shirt. It's not my quote, but I was walking along the streets in Kona one year. This is after I stopped competing. And somebody had a t-shirt on that said, you don't have to be having fun to have fun. And I thought about it. And it's like, Ironman is, you wouldn't put it in the classic category of, boy, that day was so fun. No, it's painful. It's hot. It's long. You're suffering. You willfully put yourself in this situation where you are trying to see how fast you can go for 140.6 total miles of swimming, cycling, and running all in one day in less than 17 hours. And if you are trying to be competitive, you have the dynamic of these other people who want to go just that little bit faster than you. And you're trying to figure out how to go just that little bit faster than them. And you each end up pushing each other. And you end up doing things that you could not in a million years do on your own. And it's not easy. It's not comfortable. And many times throughout the day, you're going, what the heck was I thinking that I wanted to do this stupid thing? I used to go, I'm going to get a real job when this day's over because this is the worst, you know? But there's such a difference between having fun and being fulfilled. Fun is fleeting. Fulfillment is something that changes you forever. And, you know, when you sort of are in situations where you're really being tested, or you put yourself in a situation where you test yourself, you're going to have points where you want to back off, you want to stop, you want to quit, you don't feel like you can do what you set out to do. And okay, you quiet your mind, and then maybe an answer comes how to regroup yourself, and then you get back in it. And every time you sort of regroup and relaunch and re-engage in this activity that even, you know, a moment before you were thinking about quitting, and all of a sudden now you're like, no, I'm in it, I'm gonna get to the finish line. That is empowering, and that is very fulfilling. And you know, it fills you with this energy that you would never gain or never get, or an insight into yourself and how you operate in life if you were just sitting on the couch watching CNN or whatever, you know. So easy is rarely fulfilling. Challenging can be fulfilling. And even if it isn't fulfilling in the moment, it can be a great lesson for life to teach you something that will help you later on. So here's an example from my racing. My first Ironman win came in my 7th Ironman in Hawaii. The first 6 that I did not win. I finished 5th. I finished 3rd. I finished 2nd. I could be in the lead at the end of the bike. I could be in the lead at partway through the marathon. I could be in the lead with just miles to go in the marathon, but I always fell apart and somebody passed me and went on to win. And so 6 years I suffered through these races where I thought I've got it. And then all of a sudden it's like, I don't have it, you know, and then I'm walking on the marathon and then somebody's passing me, and, you know, I'll share a secret with you. Nobody has won the Ironman World Championship walking on the marathon, you know? And so by the time I got to number 7, I was like, why am I going back to this stupid thing? And this goes back to that thing that I said earlier about
that thought, right?
Finding what has meaning for you in this journey that you want to embark on. And I thought, you know what? I may never win this thing. And so that's kind of a stupid reason to go back. But I have a reason that I want to go back. And that's because I know that I haven't had my best race. And that went back to resetting and getting engaged in my personal level of perfection. You know, I hadn't had my best race yet. And so I thought, I have to go back there and try and just figure out somehow, forget winning, just have my best race, a swim, a bike, and a run where I'm strong all the way through and I don't fall apart and I don't give up. And so that was my quest that year. And that ended up being the first of 6 victories that I had in Kona. And it was an amazing race where I was side by side with my nemesis, a guy named Dave Scott, who had won 6 Ironman titles at this point in his career. We were side by side for 8 hours, and I finally pulled away on the last long uphill before you drop back down into the town of Kona and go to the finish line. Wow. And his time that year broke his previous world's record by 18 minutes. And I did my best time by almost 30. And the difference in our times at the end was only 58 seconds. Oh, very small difference. But anyway, afterwards, you know, I was ecstatic about winning, but then there was that little part of my brain that was cynical, like, why did I have to go through all those other 6 races, you know? And then I sat back and I thought about it. Yeah. And I thought, you know, I had in those earlier races, I learned so many lessons about how to keep going when things are falling apart. Because if you're walking the marathon, you could just say, I'll forget it and stop. Or you can say, I'm walking, let me still give 100% of what I have to give, even in this 20% situation. And by learning how to do that, then when I was in that race with Dave Scott in 1989, I had moments where I went from feeling 100% down to like maybe 75%. And had I not learned that skill of staying engaged and giving 100% of what I have to give, even if I'm not feeling my best, that enabled me to make it through the low points, then come back up and be at 100%. And it was like that throughout the entire day. You know, you just never know what it is that you're learning today in the things that maybe aren't going the way you hope, that a few years down the road, or maybe even tomorrow, you're going to be able to use to become a better person, or to achieve something that you have really been striving for, or to experience a shift in yourself that you've been working on for ages and ages and ages. And finally, it's like, there it is.
And knowing that your best is still yet to come, like in that you knew it, you knew in your heart that you had to go out and still give it your best. And your best that year was better than the 6 previous years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fabulous. And that's what builds resilience and builds the confidence and the strength in all aspects of your life. It's such an incredible, inspiring story. It really is. My father always would tell me every day, he's like, just do your best. And I say this even to my kids because your best changes. And in this moment, if the best is all you could do was walk, or if the best is all I can do is eat a bagel, whatever it is, that's what it is today. And then another day, it could just be absolute victory. I want to mention something really quick, your fit quiz. And I bring this up because I think it's, for myself, I took it before we got on this call, and it brought up things in my own life that just, it makes you think, and it is pushing you to challenge yourself. So I don't want to give too much away. I hope listeners actually go to the Fit Body, Fit Soul website and they go and take the fit quiz. So they'll know what I'm talking about when they do that.
If you go to fitsoulfitbody.com, there's a lot of information about Brant and myself and the workshops we teach. And then there is a quote unquote fitness quiz because a lot of it's encompassing all of who we are. It's not just about how many steps you took today.
Right. Oh my gosh. Don't get me started on that. Although one thing, I got 0 on one question, and you would probably be shocked what it is. I realized I don't push myself like I used to. Like I go exercise. I'm like, did I break a sweat? Nope. Because I'm usually walking or doing yoga or something like that. So this is a serious question. I know all the benefits of pushing yourself and sweating and all that. Do I need to up my own game? And should I tell people who aren't, back to the exercise and aren't necessarily exercisers, do I need to be telling them to push themselves to sweat?
That's a question that I don't have a black and white answer to, actually. Okay. There's a lot of sort of science evidence that if older folks do some exercise that's at a little bit higher intensity, they get huge changes in the mitochondria in their cells. That's like our little energy, things that produce energy for movement and everything. And so older folks, they get huge changes in their mitochondria by doing just a little bit of hard stuff, higher intensity stuff.
Exactly.
And that it can definitely enable you to have more energy and to have your body work much more efficiently and just all of those things. Is it necessary? I don't know.
Maybe occasionally.
Maybe occasionally. Right? But doing that requires finding an exercise that you can do at a little higher intensity without hurting yourself or harming yourself.
Exactly. There's that balance, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's more important to focus on not injuring yourself and truly so you can do it longer over the course of your life. Like you quit when you were ahead. And I love that, Mark. I think that that's so, so important. That takes me to just a comment about coming out of the pandemic now. People that were so sedentary, they're like, oh, I'm going to go out and kill it. And I've already seen too many people get injured because they're not honoring their body. They're not taking it slowly. Their ego is saying, I am still that 20-some-year-old, right? Instead of 50-some or 60-some or even 70-some-year-old. So I want to just mention that as well, that if you do and you want to start something like that high intensity interval training or more up your game, as we'll say, start slowly, right? I think that that's extremely important. Okay, that said, in your book that I mentioned very, very briefly, The Art of Competition, it is about, I guess, motivational quotes and things. So do you have a favorite motivational quote that you want to share?
One of them is something like, the greatest victories can never be seen. The greatest victories that all of us have are those victories we have over that lesser part of ourselves that could have very easily given up, or that was coming up with excuses of why it wasn't important to keep going, or why it's justified to eat that thing you shouldn't have, or to, do some habit or negative thing as opposed to sticking with something that's positive. And so, the greatest victories are never seen because those are the ones where probably only you are going to know that you had that victory over yourself, that part of you that could have gone another direction in that moment or in that day or in that event or whatever, and you stuck with it. And those, again, go right to that word that you talked about, empowerment. That's empowering. When you have those small victories, those great victories, they're the greatest victories, and nobody else will know them. Nobody else in the world will truly understand what it's taken you to get to where you are in your life today. And that's something I think for people to, if you're feeling sorry for yourself, it's like whining to yourself, sit back for a moment and think back and reflect on the things that you have overcome, what's gotten you to this point in your life today. This is not our first rodeo, any of us.
Right. And give yourself credit where credit is due. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people don't actually. We need to acknowledge all of those hardships and failures. And that's life. That's what makes it great. And that's what makes getting older even more fulfilling and satisfying, right? Because you can take that deep breath and be proud of all of those both failures and accomplishments.
Mhm.
That's such a fabulous motivational quote. Thank you. The greatest victories are those unseen, right? Did I get it correct?
The greatest victories can never be seen.
Can never. Okay. Yeah.
And then another one that actually kind of goes somewhat along that line is the only bad race is one that you don't learn something from. It doesn't matter if you won or you lost. If you didn't lose something from it, that's a bad race. If you learn something from it, it's a great race.
Yeah.
It was a great race. It was a great moment in your life. Nothing is a loss if you've learned something from it.
Absolutely. Great words to live by. I know this resonates with everyone, honestly. Okay, I have one final key question for you. This is a fun one. What is one thing you're grateful for today?
I'm really grateful for the family and friends that I have. I have a small circle. I have a small family. I don't have 10,000 friends that I get together with all the time. I have a handful of friends that I get together with. I'm thankful for Brant. I'm thankful for my partner. She's great. I'm thankful for my son. He's 27. And I'm really thankful for all the experiences that I've had and that I still have in nature. Ever since I was a kid, I had this feeling like I just wanted to wrap my arms around the earth and give her a hug. And I just have had so many great moments in nature over the years, over my lifetime. And
we all need to give Mother Nature, Mother Gaia a hug.
And I'm truly thankful that my body works well still. I am 63 and I have asked a lot of it, to race 15 years at that world-class level. And,
Thank you for answering that or saying that, because I told a close friend of mine that I was speaking with you, and that was his question to you.
Wow.
So I guess then the actual final question is, before I sadly think that we have to say goodbye just for this conversation, I would love to have you back. So where can our listeners find you, or where would you like to send people to find out more about either Mark Allen Coaching or, your work with Brant, or both?
You can go to markallencoaching.com if you're interested in doing a triathlon. It's purely triathlon oriented coaching at this point. If you're interested in learning more about the book that Brant and I wrote together and the workshops that we have, you can go to fitsoul-fitbody.com, and there's a lot of information on that. And then you can also follow me on Instagram, Mark Allen Grip. I post in spurts, so you'll see, I go in different directions.
Okay, that's fabulous. Well, considering I didn't ask probably half of my questions, I'm really hoping you would come back as a guest again someday.
Oh, I'd love to, Susan. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, Mark, thank you again. It was not only a pleasure, this was extremely inspiring and empowering, as I had intended, and did not disappoint. So have a great evening. Thank you. And we will see you back sometime soon, I hope.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time to join me and listen to this episode. Listeners can find more information and also subscribe to the Sense of Wellness podcast at www.ccphp.net/SENS/podcast. That's www.ccphp.net/sens/podcast. This show is brought to you by Castle Connolly Private Health Partners. We are a concierge medicine organization that partners with exceptional physicians to deliver an unrivaled healthcare experience while also empowering our members to achieve their optimal well-being. Be sure to listen in next time to the Sense of Wellness podcast, and remember, simple daily habits matter most.